Yes, indeedy, folks. It's the Beer Drinker's Guide to the Great Wahoo. Well, folks, after our 2 week hiatus of looking at reruns, which indeed does prove that this is a real TV show and no monkeying around about it, here we are back with some new material. I must admit, I'm really sorry about the mix-up on the chapter on Boise High coming out at the wrong time. I was really looking forward to letting people know about that tour of the school. But that's milk under the bridge, or however that goes. And now, here we go with a couple of new considerations. One, a little look at high drama, and the other, a look at a really big swell. High drama. A dramatic adventure. I began a life of showing off on the stage in grade school, actually. At Lowell Grade School, I don't know, maybe it was in the second grade or the fourth grade, I distinctly remember being on the stage in the gymnasium at Lowell Grade School as we rounded up the wagons and protected ourselves from the attacking engines and probably had a song around the campfire. It was great fun. I got into the Kiwanis Boys Club for a while after that, and then I got onto the stage doing class skits in North Junior High, again on a stage in a gymnasium. It was great fun. However, it wasn't really till I got to Boise High that I started realizing the power and the magic of a stage. It was beneath this stately ceiling at Boise High School, in an auditorium originally built to seat 1,800. I spent 3 years performing whenever I could on this beautiful stage. Today, some of the seats from the upper part on the third floor of the auditorium have been built into a experimental intimate stage in the drama room. This small stage includes a production room that encourages being experimental with lighting and sound. In the 1960s, when I was going to school at Boise High, we did not have this experimental stage where students are encouraged to do intimate productions. Instead, our only opportunity to do productions was on the main stage in the auditorium. We did a few every year, inviting the entire community. Both my work with the drama department at Boise High under Helen Ferrer, bless her soul, she was certainly patient with us, and my work with Mr. Anderson in the choir had me perform on the stage several times. During those performances, I learned something about drama, and I sat down a few months ago and made a little statement about it. I haven't gotten around to using it in my program yet, and I thought, well, this is as good a time to present it as any. I spent my days in junior high and high school here in Boise being a thespian. No, not that. A thespian as in an actor, as in a dramatist, as in a theater person. And it was great fun. I enjoyed the traveling and the contests and the being on stage. And one of the things that I learned, one of the little secrets that I learned, was when it came time for the production to be over. Now, when you're doing comedy, you really want to have that burst of applause, that wow, the second you lay the final one on them. Ah, God, that is just so fantastic. Just have them hanging there, busting a gut and wanting more, and yet knowing that, hey, this is it. He's left us laughing. However, when you're doing drama, it's a different thing. Both when I was singing in the choir and when I was working in theater, when I was doing drama, yes, the applause was nice at the end. And yes, the longer and louder, that was a definition of how the project went and whether people enjoyed and appreciated what I was doing. However, that's not how I measured my success. What I found I measured my success by was the silence. The deeper, the more total, and the longer the silence before the first clap. When you have done something that touches people's hearts, when you have done something that touches people's feelings and lets them think about and feel and celebrate the magic of this life, the magic of being, the magic of heartache and of celebration and of love. And you have reached the end of your story and they are on the edge of their seat, not breathing, so that they will get the last word and the last nuance and the last breath of what you have just said. It is the length of the silence before the first clap that you measure your success by.
And now, the Beer Drinker's Guide to the Great Wahoo brings you the unexpected discovery. Today's unexpected discovery comes from that source of so many unexpected discoveries, the road. Specifically, the freeway to the Great Swell. Several times I have taken roads through Utah, either getting from Colorado or to New Mexico, and I almost always take the shortcut of Highway 6, going from Spanish Fork on Freeway 15 down to Green River on Freeway 70. However, in March of 2007, coming back from Moab, I had decided that it'd be interesting to try Highway 70 and see what is out across that country. I was pretty well expecting that the entire drive from Green River over to Interstate 15 would look an awful lot like this. And for a while, that's exactly what I found. However, after a little bit, I found this little ridge. It started appearing on the north side of the road. This little ridge turned out to be one fantastic drive. This little ridge is the San Rafael Swell, or as the locals know it, the Silent City. The interpretive signs call it a great rock wall, 30 miles wide and 75 miles long. Spanish explorers went 20 miles out of their way to go around this place that was uninhabitable and impassable. The feature is called an anticline. Instead of an incline, it's the reverse of that, where the Earth's crust has heaved up from underneath and pushed a huge dome into the air. Over time, the top of this huge dome eroded away. This upheaval of the interior of the Earth has made for huge deposits of uranium. It is rumored the French scientist Marie Curie visited this area because of her interest in uranium and because there was so much of it around here. That would have been right around the turn of the 20th century. However, there was really no mining here until between 1950 and 1956, when the Cold War was demanding lots of uranium for atomic weapons. The interpretive sign observes that prospectors arrived in jalopies and surplus army jeeps with their Geiger counters, picks, and sledgehammers. Some made millions, some merely began driving Buicks and Lincolns. Can you imagine working in this mine? During this time, the town of Green River was booming as a staging point for exploration and for ore processing. This massive rock wall that is called Silent City has a huge gouge that runs into the width of it. This gouge into the San Rafael Swell is called the Black Dragon Canyon. Black Dragon Canyon narrows down on the eastern slope to a very, very narrow little gulch called Spotted Wolf. Originally, a man could stand in the bottom of Spotted Wolf Gulch and reach out and have his hands on the walls of both sides of the canyon. In 1957, Congress voted to expand the interstate highway system. At that time, it was decided that Interstate 70 would go through the San Rafael Swell. Black Dragon Canyon and Spotted Wolf were the only spots to put a road at all, so they went to work. Engineers and surveyors hung in body harnesses and ropes. They were as high as 400 feet above the floor at Spotted Wolf. To build only 8 miles of 2-lane highway, this was not the freeway, this was a 2-lane highway, to build 8 miles through Spotted Wolf and up Black Dragon Canyon cost $4.5 million at the time. Not only was the desolate, rugged terrain difficult to work in and required taking supplies a long way from anywhere that people were living, it also cost the expense of moving 3.5 million cubic yards of rock to build only 8 miles of highway. That $3.5 million was a significant percentage of the entire cost of building the 2-lane road all the way from the Colorado border over to Fremont Junction, almost, if not more, than halfway across Utah. The 2-lane extension of Interstate Highway 70 was opened in November of 1970, and in the mid-1980s, 2 more lanes were added to make it a true interstate highway. Because of the difficulty and expense, today it is a comfortable 5-minute drive to go through this extremely difficult cut. In steepness and in the amount and size of the curves, I would compare it somewhat to the drive from Lucky Peak Dam up to Hilltop. I'm not sure why I didn't think to run my car cam coming up the Black Dragon Canyon, but here we are at the top of it, looking back. One interesting feature of anticlines, which we have just climbed up, is that because of the erosion from the top, when you are on the top of them, you are actually standing on rocks that were laid down many, many millions of years earlier than the rocks that you were standing on when you were down in the valley. In the case of Black Dragon Canyon, at the top of the hill, we are standing on rocks that are 50 million years older than those down at Green River. In fact, the rocks that we are standing on were deposited over 250 million years ago. The red coloring is because of iron oxide. The more iron oxide, the more red coloring you get. Brighter colors, as in the yellow and the red, come from where the sands were exposed to air and the iron oxidized. Lighter colored rocks were stones and sand that was deposited underwater and the air could not oxidize it. We are now standing on the top of the Swell and will be driving along the top of it. This is country that explorer John Wesley Powell described as, quote, a land of desolation, dedicated forever to the geologist and artist, where civilization can find no resting place. The interpretive sign points out that despite John Wesley Powell's saying civilization could find no resting place, Indian tribes, Mormon pioneers, cowboys, outlaws, prospectors, and miners all found places to settle in this forsaken country. As you might expect, this country was pretty popular with the outlaws. Butch Cassidy was just one of many. Eliza Lay, Flat-Nosed George, Kid Curry, Joe Walker, many of them found this a popular place to go escape from the law during the late 1800s. Before these outlaws, in the 1850s, Chief Wakara escaped here with somewhere around 1,400 horses, 1,400 horses, which he had stolen from ranchers in California. This area also saw the Old Spanish Trail, which was built about around 1800, and on this route, slave traders brought Native Americans and sold them to Mexico City for as much as $200. The interpretive signs ask us to think about what it must have been for those Native Americans, probably from the Snake River Plain and other places in the Northwest, to be taken across this desolate land on their way to slavery. On top of all the unexpected scenery and history, I noticed these little wisps of smoke. This is the Hunter Power Plant. It makes 1,240 megawatts of electricity, burning 4.5 million tons of coal annually. Fortunately, this coal is a low sulfur coal, and it comes from the fields of central Utah, just to the west of where this photograph was taken. The interpretive signs give us a little taste of the difference between the old-fashioned way of mining this coal, which is mined underground, and the modern way. The 1,240 megawatts from the Hunter plant joins 2,215 megawatts from two other plants in this area to make electricity for Utah and California. The power from these plants is distributed through 345,000 volt transmission lines, which are about half again as large as the 230,000 volt lines that bring electricity from Hell's Canyon to the Snake River Plain. Many local place names and much lore in this country is placed on four brothers. The Swayzes came in 1875. Charlie, Sid, Rod, and Joe have their name on many buttes and canyons in this country. They trapped wild horses in juniper tree corrals. They prospected. They mined gold, silver, and uranium. They did pretty well whatever it took to get by in this arid country. The interpretive sign observes they never became rich, but they certainly enriched the lore of the West. One feature they named in this country was Eagle Canyon. They claimed it was so deep an eagle couldn't fly out. A bridge going over this canyon is 300 feet above the canyon floor. To the west of the San Rafael Swell, we come to a place known as a place nobody wanted, also known as Castle Valley. This desolate desert was located between the Wasatch Plateau and the San Rafael Swell on the east. As the Mormons settled Utah in August 22nd, 1877, Brigham Young sent Mormons of San Pete Valley over to colonize the Castle Valley. Brigham Young's call to colonize Castle Valley was the last Mormon call to colonize. After observing this fact about being the last place to have called to colonize, the interpretive sign observed, quote, "Some have wondered if Castle Valley was the very last place on earth nobody else wanted." It was mostly colonized by young people full of dreams and hopes. However, one settler, Hannah Olson Seeley, observed, quote, "Damn the man who would bring a woman to such a God-forsaken country." As we reach the western side of Castle Valley, we find this interpretive sign, observing that this used to be the bottom of a sea. Just north of this point, the Cleveland Lloyd Dinosaur Quarry has produced more dinosaur mounts for museums than any other spot in the world. One of the things that I was rather charmed at this wayside rest were the very unusual little outhouses, beautiful little pink S-curves with an outhouse tucked into them. From Castle Valley, we cross the Wasatch Plateau. and drive down a little ravine or canyon down into Salina. At Salina, I decided to take a little shortcut, Highway 28, that takes me up to Levin and onto Interstate Highway 15. Highway 28 was a beautiful drive. And that, folks, is the story of my experiencing a freeway to the Swell. An experience I expected to be a drive across a flat desert, and instead I found to be an unexpected discovery. Linguists went on an extensive study of the English language, and they determined that the shortest sentence in the English language is, I am. Having raised their curiosity, they went looking for the longest sentence in the English language. And that's another Beer Drinker's Guide to the Great Wahoo. Thanks for watching. See you next week. And in the meantime, keep celebrating the great